Are you ready to hear a story that doesn't end behind prison walls? Jacksonville's rising rap star, Ksoo, known for his raw truth and relentless rivalries, is now caught in the very battle he once rapped about. Just 3 days after his conviction, a brutal attack inside jail changed everything. This was no random fight, it was a calculated message, and the stakes have never been higher. Behind bars, loyalty means life or death, and betrayal runs deep. Will Ksoo survive the system stacked against him? Or is this the beginning of a deadly downfall? Stay with us as we uncover the dark realities of street justice, family betrayal, and a world where the game always comes with a price. Devastating blow. A betrayal from within the family. Ksoo's own father, Abdul Robinson Sr., known as Blue, took the stand and identified his son as the shooter. For many, this was the ultimate act of betrayal, a father turning on his child in the name of self-preservation. In street culture, where loyalty is paramount, being labeled the son of a snitch is like carrying a death sentence. This stigma made Ksoo a marked man behind bars, where reputation and respect mean everything and can be a matter of life or death. Just 3 days after Ksoo's conviction for first-degree murder, he was attacked inside Duval County Jail. Sources report he was cornered and assaulted with a homemade weapon, suffering puncture wounds and blunt force trauma. This was not a random act of violence, but a carefully planned hit during a moment of vulnerability, just after his conviction, but before he could be moved to a safer location. The attack was a clear message, not only to Ksoo, but to anyone thinking about cooperating with authorities or crossing lines. In the jail system, the same rivalries and codes of the streets exist and can be just as deadly. The streets don't forget, and the reach of those grudges often extends into prison. Since the attack, official channels have been silent. Ksoo's absence from a sentencing hearing and the lack of comment from jail officials have fueled rumors and speculation. Social media posts, including a deleted Instagram story saying, "They ain't break him. He's still solid, eyes open," offer cryptic glimpses into his condition, but the truth remains murky. This situation shines a harsh light on the challenges of protecting high-profile inmates who come from violent backgrounds. If Ksoo, under heavy watch, could be attacked so quickly, what does that say about jail security and the willingness of authorities to prevent such incidents? It raises uncomfortable questions about systemic neglect and the dangers prisoners face beyond the courtroom. For Ksoo's family, the pain is compounded. The testimony of his father fractured their bonds, and now they face the terrifying reality that their son might not survive long enough to serve his sentence. Meanwhile, Jacksonville's hip-hop community is grappling with the consequences of a culture where music, street credibility, and real violence collide. Ksoo's story is both a cautionary tale and a reflection of a larger issue. The glorification of violence in music can have deadly real-world consequences. His case also highlights whether the justice system is prepared to handle the complex intersection of culture, crime, and punishment. Looking ahead, Ksoo faces a pending murder trial connected to a 2019 killing, which could add another life sentence. But more pressing is his daily struggle to stay alive inside jail, where he is seen as both a trophy and a target. Multiple jail transfers suggest officials recognize the threat to his safety, yet the fact that an attack occurred reveals deep flaws in security measures. In the streets, there's an unspoken rule. When you keep it real, sometimes the real keeps you. Ksoo's authenticity built his career, but also placed a deadly price on his head. His music celebrated a lifestyle that eventually consumed him. Now, behind bars, he's no longer the predator, he's the prey. The streets don't forgive mistakes, and they always collect their debts. In Ksoo's case, a perfect storm of family betrayal, legal consequences, and street justice has come crashing down. The big question now isn't just if he will serve his sentence, it's whether he will survive long enough to do so. The attack was just the beginning of a dangerous journey through a correctional system where being a convicted killer and the son of a snitch makes survival uncertain. This story sends a stark warning to Jacksonville's rap scene. The game has serious consequences, and sometimes those consequences follow you everywhere you go. Only time will tell if Ksoo will overcome these challenges or become another victim of the culture he helped create. But one thing is certain, the streets always collect their debts, one way or another. He built a name with hard-hitting tracks and videos that openly spoke about real-life killings. That choice would eventually come back to destroy him. His name started echoing across social media and police files after January 15, 2020, the day Charles McCormick, a member of Rival 6 Block, was killed. Authorities claimed it was revenge for a diss track that mocked the death of Ksoo's own family member. The case grew even more intense when the state's key witness, Dominique Barner, testified under oath that the killing had been carefully planned, almost like a military mission. In street terms, they called it handling up, which in this context meant taking someone's life. So when the verdict was read on July 31, 2025, the courtroom froze in silence. Ksoo had gone from being a rising rap figure to a convicted murderer. In Florida, first-degree murder comes with life in prison without parole, no deals, no second chances, no walking out to watch your children grow. But the story did not end there. Word spread quickly that just days after the verdict, violence erupted inside the jail. Sources claimed Ksoo was attacked in his housing unit by someone who was not even supposed to be in the same area. This raises questions. County jails are supposed to follow strict security rules for high-profile inmates, and Ksoo was no ordinary prisoner. His case involved 2 rival crews, ATK and 6 Block, and years of deadly retaliation in Jacksonville. He was a high-risk inmate with a target on his back. So how was he left exposed? Official whispers inside corrections say the fight began over nothing more than a hostile look. But anyone who knows Ksoo understands this was not about a stare. Not after the trial, not after the plea deals, and especially not after his own father testified against him. The prosecution had been offering deals left and right, all for one purpose: to lock Ksoo away for life. Dominique Barner, the getaway driver, struck a deal that could see him walk free in 20 years instead of dying in prison. But the deepest cut came from within Ksoo's own family. In the streets, everyone knows what happens to snitches, and it is worse when the betrayal comes from your own blood. When your father takes the witness stand in a murder trial and points the finger at you, you are not just a convicted killer, you become the son of a rat. In prison, that kind of label is like wearing a target on your forehead. Just days after that testimony helped seal the case, word spread that Ksoo had been found in bad shape, bloodied, beaten, and with a stab wound to the ribs along with heavy blunt force injuries. While no one can yet confirm every detail, the whispers are getting louder. The correctional officers are silent. No surveillance footage has been released. His family is completely quiet. Meanwhile, social media is running wild with rumors that he is now in the jail's medical unit. Adding to the mystery, an account supposedly linked to one of Ksoo's closest friends posted an Instagram story, deleted moments later, reading, "They ain't breaking. He's still solid, eyes open." Was that a hidden message? Was the attack a warning or an attempt to silence him before sentencing? Many believe Fulio and the 6 Block crew were behind it, especially since one of their own, Lil Buck, was part of the original feud. To understand why Ksoo became such a high-value target in jail, you have to look back at his trial, the one that did more than convict him. It put a permanent bullseye on his back. The courtroom battle began on July 23, 2025, with jury selection already raising eyebrows. The case was unusual. 2 separate juries were chosen, one for Ksoo and another for his co-defendant and cousin, Leroy ATK Scotty Whitaker. Their legal teams were pointing fingers at each other, each trying to shift the blame for the killing. The real drama began when the prosecution called its witnesses. What followed was a lesson in how the system can turn family members and lifelong friends into informants. Ksoo's day ones were suddenly trading loyalty for lighter sentences. The state's star witness, Dominique Barner, was more than just a driver. He was a symbol of the loyalty collapse. His testimony confirmed that the motive for killing Charles McCormick was a diss track aimed at Ksoo's circle. In court, he admitted that the song made him and the others furious, especially because it mocked their slain friends and family. Barner's deal was simple: testify against your former friends and serve 20 years instead of life. For someone facing multiple murder charges, It was an easy choice. But that decision tore the first hole in Ksoo's defense. The prosecution's case relied on circumstantial evidence, but when pieced together, it painted a strong image of premeditated murder. They presented crime scene surveillance, forensic work linking Ksoo's build to the shooter, and digital proof from phones and social media. The most damaging was the forensic technology, 3D scans and gait analysis used to match Ksoo's height, body shape, and walk to the masked gunman caught on camera. The defense fought hard, claiming the forensic comparison was nothing more than unreliable junk science. But the video analysis still swayed all 12 jurors. The most crushing blow, however, came from the last person anyone expected, Ksoo's own father, Abdul. Blue Robinson Sr. His decision to take the stand became one of the most shocking betrayals in recent street history. Robinson Sr. had been charged as an accessory after the fact, accused of helping his son escape after the murder. Facing decades in prison, he struck a deal, served just 76 months, and he had already completed 60 of them. The cost of that freedom was turning against his own blood. In court, when asked if he recognized the shooter in the murder video of Charles McCormick, he paused for a long moment. His voice shook as he said, "Yes, sir." When pressed, he confirmed, "It was my son, Hakeem Robinson." He explained that he knew it was him simply from knowing his children. He also gave the prosecution details about an incriminating social media post Ksoo made after the killing, one bragging about getting a pedicure after taking a life. In street culture, where loyalty is everything, this was the ultimate betrayal. It branded both father and son as snitches, marking them for possible retaliation. People from Ksoo's world made it clear his father was no innocent man. They said he had been active in the streets long before this, and that this case was not some random twist of fate. Even rapper Boozy Badass spoke out, saying a real father should never do that to his child. His comments echoed what much of the hip-hop community was already feeling, that Robinson Sr.'s actions broke the most sacred bond between father and son. It took barely 4 hours to find him guilty of first-degree murder. The verdict brought an automatic life sentence without parole. As the clerk read it aloud, Ksoo's disbelief was clear. He accused the system of being corrupt, pointing to the fact that the jury was all white and the state attorneys were too. But those public posts were more than frustration, they were mistakes. In prison politics, that kind of talk can make your enemies even bolder. And within days, it became clear that the real danger was not in the courtroom, it was inside his jail block. According to street sources, the attack was no coincidence. Jail politics carry layers of meaning, and Ksoo had stacked up far more enemies than friends. First, there was his father's testimony. In prison culture, loyalty is sacred, and Abdul Robinson Sr.'s decision to testify against his own son branded the entire family as rats. That label alone can get you killed behind bars. Second, Ksoo's deep ties to Jacksonville's drill scene meant his enemy list stretched far beyond his neighborhood. The war between ATK and rival sets like KTA and 6 Block had already claimed more than a dozen lives. Some of those victims' friends and relatives were likely serving time in the same facility. The attack itself, based on whispers from the inside, was fast and brutal. Ksoo was cornered in a common area during a shift change, a moment when security is at its weakest and guards are distracted with other duties. What happened next made it clear that this was not a random fight, but a planned move meant to send a message. The attacker, someone who wasn't supposed to be in that jail block, reportedly used a shank to inflict deep puncture wounds and heavy blunt force injuries on Ksoo. The timing was no accident, just 3 days after his conviction. That was enough time for word to travel through the jail's networks, but before Ksoo could be moved to a safer place or placed under protective custody. This narrow window of vulnerability was clearly targeted. But what makes this attack even more chilling is what it signaled. It was more than settling old scores, it was a warning to anyone thinking about cooperating with authorities. The streets have a long memory and an even longer reach. Since the attack, official silence has been deafening. Ksoo was absent from a key court hearing on August 8th, where his sentencing was supposed to be set. He did not appear in person or even by video link, raising serious concerns. Jail officials have refused to comment on any incident involving him, and no security footage has been released. This silence follows a troubling pattern in Florida's prison system, where violence involving high-profile inmates is often covered up. Instead, social media has become the main source for clues about Ksoo's condition. A now-deleted Instagram story read, "They ain't break him. He's still solid, eyes open." Was that a message of hope? A warning? Or something else entirely? The attack on Ksoo shows that the violence once on Jacksonville's streets has simply moved behind bars. His conviction was hailed as a win for law enforcement in the fight against the city's drill rap scene, but this jailhouse attack reveals serious flaws in the system's ability to protect inmates like him. If someone as closely watched as Ksoo can be attacked so soon after conviction, what does that say about jail security and safety? It exposes gaps in protocols and suggests institutional indifference that puts prisoners at unnecessary risk. For Ksoo's family, it's yet another heartbreaking blow in a case already filled with betrayal and pain. His father's testimony fractured the family, and now they face the terrifying possibility that their son might not live long enough to serve his sentence. The attack also highlights the blurred lines in Jacksonville's hip-hop world, where art, street credibility, and real violence dangerously overlap. Ksoo's story is a warning about the cost of glorifying violence in music and a question about whether the criminal justice system is ready to handle cases where culture and crime collide. Looking ahead, Ksoo faces more challenges. He still has another murder trial pending for a 2019 killing, which could add another life sentence. But for now, his biggest battle is survival. Reports of multiple jail transfers show authorities know he's a high-risk target, but the fact that the attack happened raises doubts about whether the protections are enough or just reactionary. In the streets, there's an unspoken rule. When you keep it real, sometimes the real keeps you. Ksoo built his name on authenticity, but that same honesty now costs him dearly behind bars. His music celebrated a violent lifestyle that ultimately swallowed him whole. His conviction closed one chapter, but opened another, one where he is no longer the hunter, but the hunted. The streets never forget, and they never forgive. What goes around comes around. In Ksoo's case, a deadly mix of family betrayal, legal trouble, and street justice collided in the most dangerous way. The real question now is not just whether he will serve his sentence, but if he will survive long enough to do so. This attack was only the start of what could be a long, dangerous journey through Florida's prison system, where being both a convicted killer and the son of a snitch makes you a target no one respects. This wasn't just an isolated attack. It was a clear message to Jacksonville's rap scene: the game has consequences. And sometimes, those consequences follow you everywhere you go. Whether Ksoo will survive or become another victim of this culture remains uncertain. But one thing is clear: the streets always collect their debts, one way or another.